this Sabbath. I wish you all a happy Sabbath. And I wish you all a happy International Women's Day. It's good to also take some time today to consider that, I think. Before I start, I would like to begin with a prayer. And then I'll introduce myself and introduce the study. Let's open with a word of prayer. Lord, I want to come before you this morning to ask a special blessing upon this hour. For us united here in this Zoom channel, but I also ask for those gathered together this morning worldwide. That our movement this morning may come a step closer to a united understanding on the Sunday Law message. We ask for your guidance and your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen. Good morning again. My name is Arjan. I'm from the Netherlands in Europe. And I feel happy to join you this morning. I understand I'm the first international speaker in this series. There is, I think, in total five of us, four. And I think this the situation where we are in right now within the movement is I don't think has ever happened before. And I think it's good for us as a movement to, as a group, as a movement, study and find the truth for ourselves. And I pray that this hour may contribute to that today. As you may know, I did a series of presentations in January in Germany. It was a 3-part series. From what I understood is that most of the people in your group have been able to watch those. But not all, because there was some problems with the translation or the uploading of the translations. So perhaps somewhere after this presentation today, those German presentations will be uploaded. For those who were not able to watch that series, I would recommend to watch them afterwards. Because I'm not going to repeat in detail what I presented there. I will review it. I will summarize it. I tried to summarize it in one presentation. But in Germany, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of, there were some sources that I used. I'm not going to read from those sources today because of time. So I may go perhaps a little quickly today, or state something without really proving it. But I did that in Germany, and I would refer to that presentation for the proofs, so to speak. So there's, as the introduction said, there are several Sunday law messages around in the movement at the moment. Like I have really a Sunday law message, really. Is my connection unstable? Okay. So, all right, I'll continue. But the study that I do has some implications, is connected to what we understand to be the Sunday law. So when we talk about Sunday law, like literal the event of the Sunday law, we talk about an event that is happening internally within the movement. Sorry, we're within the United States. The study that I'm doing, or the events that I'm looking at for this study, is externally. It's actually the connection, or the strife or the battles between the King of the North and the King of the South. In other studies, we or other tests called it, you have the Eastern Front and the Western Front. So the Eastern Front is the front where the King of the North battles with the King of the South. And Western Front is the battle within the United States itself. And the Sunday law is part of the Western Front. My study is about the Eastern Front. But the events or the waymarks that we place within those stories, they must be in line with each other. So, for example, when we go to 1989, we mark the fall of the Berlin Wall. So that's the battle between the King of that's the Eastern Front. But in the same year, in another story, let's say we take the story of LGBTQ, we see also events connected to to that waymark. We see, for example, the first same-sex partnership, registered partnership. Or so what I'm saying is that the line of LGBTQ is a different story, it's a different line. Compared to, for example, the line of the Eastern Front. But the waymarks are do align with each other. But not exactly on the date. So we mark 1989 and 11/9 as the fall of the Berlin Wall. But that doesn't mean that at exactly the same day same-sex partnership was legal now. But it happens approximately in the same time period, in the same year, but a little earlier, a little later. Same thing for 9/11. We mark September 11, 2001. But we marked the first same-sex marriage in 2001 as well. But this wedding, this marriage was somewhere in April. So we mark specific time periods or specific years often. Not necessarily exactly the same day. So when we look at the line of an Eastern Front and the line of Western Front, then the waymarks should line up with each other. So the problem with my, or I don't know if that's a problem, but yeah, the problem with or the challenge with my study is that it is not exactly in line with what other teachers teach about the Sunday law. Elder Terry, for example, she was the first speaker with the Sunday law message. She places the Sunday law at July 18, 2024. When I did my studies in the same time period, I came to the conclusion, looking at the Eastern Front, that the Sunday law waymark must be 2020, probably 2025. So this is where the challenge is in regards to the message that I have. Before I go to the main line or the main study that I want to show, I want to introduce another line first. Um, so we start this line in 1989. Um, in 1989 and 91, we see the fall of the King of the South. And because the King of the South uh, dies here at this point, we see a rise of the King of the North. Or we see a rise of the United States. And as Elder Parminder has introduced, I think last week it was, we see already the rise of the Seventh Kingdom here taking place. It's the dynamic of the we see the United States rise as a unilateral power. It's the only power, it's the only superpower in the world now. After the fall of the second world power here, the USSR. And they even start to emphasize it. George Bush Senior, George Bush Jr. They really recognize this vacuum, and they take advantage of it. So then in 2001, we have the event of 9/11. And while the United States is in this process of growing in power and becoming more, you could say, dictatorial on the worldwide scene, we at 9/11 we see that actually the United States is vulnerable, or you could even say weak. Because of 9/11, the United States tries to emphasize their power even more. But they fail in the way they do that. In 2003, they invade Iraq. Based on false information. I can't hear my translator. Are you there? Oh, sorry. No, the last one was they went into Iraq based on false information. They tried to convince the whole world that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. But later, it was only within the same year or a year later, the world realized that they were duped by the United States. And since then, the United States lost a lot of credibility. Nobody trusted the unilateral power that the United States tried to have. So they lose credibility. And it shows that the United States is actually in some way weak. The United States doesn't dare to intervene when that is actually sometimes necessary. For example, in 2014, President Obama didn't dare to intervene when Russia invaded Ukraine. Obama basically didn't do anything because he was afraid of making the same mistake as in Iraq. So as the United States loses its credibility and there's a loss of power, so to speak, we see the rise of Russia again, or of Russia, the king of the South. In this same time period. And this power of Russia has its peak in 2019. Now, Russia won several battles with the United States, mostly on the information warfare. And also wins a lot of spheres of influence. And then we come to 2021. This is actually the beginning of the line that I want to look at with you. And that line starts in 2021. Or at least a fragment of that line. Of course, the whole line is longer, but I'm trying to focus on this fragment of the line between 2021 and the Sunday. So to understand 2021, we need to understand this history that I briefly addressed here. There is this struggle of power between the King of the North and the King of the South. And we know that at the end of the world, the King of the North takes control of the world, so to speak. So that's in this time period here. So the time period here, the Sunday Law time period where the King of the North rises in unilateral power. can be compared with this history here, where the United States rises into unilateral power. Just a little detail that I want to add to it. It's not a point that I want to make, but just a comment. Is that after the United States rises into unilateral power and uses that, we see that Islam strikes and punishes the King of the North. So I'm suggesting that also here at the Sunday law, we see this continuous rise of the King of the North. That also here we can expect radical Islam to strike. I think there is this connection between rising to unilateral power, misusing that power, and followed by a strike. What we mark here as the seventh kingdom, here in this Sunday law time period, the rise. It's actually what we see here already happening. So we can also make it one story and see a progressive rise of the seventh kingdom starting at the time of the end. We see that the king of the south comes in between and disturbs the dynamic a little bit. But it's when the king of the south is dealt with, we see a repetition of the time of the end history. So we see a rise and a fall, a rise of the kingdom and a fall of the sixth kingdom, but also a fall of Russia. But 2021 is this I would say turning point. Where the USA takes the lead again. So you could say the USA restores its credibility that it lost here in Iraq. And I will explain this. I will explain this in a minute. But in this battle between the King of the North and the King of the South, Russia was winning constantly in this time period. And the USA was behind all the time. And in 2021, President Biden took a decision to restore the USA credibility, and take the position as a unilateral power. What we see happening today with Donald Trump and the power that he uses on a worldwide scale is started in 2021 with Joe Biden. I will explain that in a minute. So I want to look at this history now. Are there any questions on what I shared here? Just clarifying questions. Okay, so I want to, I'm going to start with 2021 Panium. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't. Oh, this is supposed to be black. Oh, I put my, I'm sorry, I put my marker in the wrong. I have a little ink box here to fill it, but I put the wrong color in the, my black marker in the red ink, sorry. And my red marker in the black ink. Anyway, we'll continue. So this is, Panium. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah. Well, somehow it does that sometimes. So I might so this is the waymark Panium. So basically what I did is this is the waymark. What I'm the one that I draw here. This is 2021. It has a beginning and an end. Um, and I start this battle. This is Panium, or you could call it Beneventum. And I'll start this in February. And I'll end it in October. So in February, we see the beginning of the King of the North attacking the King of the South. It is where Biden is in conversation with President Zelensky. Zelensky wants money from the United States to support in the war against Russia. Because that war started in 2014, remember? And Biden says, well, we want to support you, but you need to do something about the corruption in your country. And the corruption is basically corrupt politicians and corrupt oligarchs. So Biden used that opportunity to start with removing one specific oligarch. This oligarch was a personal friend of Vladimir Putin. And this oligarch owned 3 television stations, pro-Russian, pro-Russian television stations. They took down those television stations. They froze all the assets of this oligarch. And they started the court case against him. Because of corruption. So when that happened, Vladimir Putin was not happy. Because first, a personal friend was attacked. But secondly, it was also the source of Russian information into Ukraine was cut. Because those 3 television stations were propaganda machines from out of Russia. So in the same month, February, and also in March, Putin mobilizes the military. And they mobilize it across the border of Ukraine. A lot of big military equipment and thousands of soldiers. And people, through satellite images, the world recognized that. Putin said, no, this is just military training. Don't worry. We don't want to invade Ukraine. And he kept saying that for a long time. But then in October marks a turning point in this story. In October, there's a White House meeting with president, the vice president, and all the CIA, FBI, CIA directors. And the CIA had gathered some intelligences, some information about the military buildup in Russia. And the CIA was concerned in a way that they wanted to have this meeting with the president. Because the information that the CIA had was Yeah, the information that the CIA had was very alarming. Biden heard there in this meeting in October that Putin was really going to invade, and not small, but with a big invasion. Putin had two main goals with this invasion. First of all, he wanted to go into Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, and topple the Ukrainian government. And replace it by a pro-Russian government. The second goal was to take parts of eastern and southern Ukraine and bring them into Russia to annex those parts of Ukraine. I can't hear my translator. I can't hear my translator. Are you there? Justina, are you there? I can hear you now again. Yeah. Um, what did I say? Um, oh, yes. So there were two goals Putin had. The first one is to replace the government by a Russian government. And the second goal was to annex certain parts of eastern Russia. So if you summarize those 2 points into one, Putin wanted to make Ukraine a much smaller country and a much smaller country and pro-Russian, with a pro-Russian government. So that's the information that the Americans have in October. And Biden now has two problems. The first problem is that is this story here. It's the fact that the USA has a low credibility. In 2003, they also had a White House meeting. And intelligences were shared about Saddam Hussein. But later they were proven wrong and false. So now Biden had this dilemma. He wanted to do something about the situation in Ukraine. Are you there? I can't hear you, Justina. Okay, no worries. Um, in October, Biden had this dilemma. He wanted to intervene in Ukraine, but he needed to convince the rest of the world as well. And this is where the problem was, because there was this low credibility. But still, Biden took the decision. Yes, Biden took the decision, or he made a decision. Sorry, no, Biden made the decision to intervene and to do something about it. And since this time period, Biden was saying to the rest of the world, don't trust Putin. Putin is going to invade. But the rest of the world didn't believe that. The European leaders tried and traveled, tried to convince Putin and traveled to Putin. Because they believed the story of Putin and Russia that was told in this history. Putin had convinced the world that Russia was a safe ally and was a trusted partner. And most European countries, for example, trusted Russia in a way as a reasonable partner. And then Biden says, don't trust him. They're going to invade. They're going to invade Ukraine or Europe. And then the rest of the world is or the European nations are dealing with this. I call it propaganda that they used in this, that they heard in this time period. So it took until the invasion for the rest of the world or for the rest of the European nations to realize that Biden was actually right. So I'm saying that Beneventum is this battle between the King of the North and the King of the South in 2021. Beneventum is a battle that was instigated, it was started by the King of the North. And it's also won by the King of the North. It's this in the real story, it was the last battle that Pyrrhus fought in Italy. I'm saying that struggle that took place in this year is an information warfare. Because here in October, Biden took the decision to fight back and to share information, share the intelligences he had about Putin. As soon as intelligences were available, they started sharing them with their allies. And it prevented Putin to surprise. It prevented Putin for have a surprise attack, so to speak. For more details about this history, I really recommend to go back to the series that I did in Germany. I want to go to the next, because of time, I want to go to the next waymark. It's the waymark of Concord. I'm suggesting that that is 2022, starting in February and ending in September. So we of course know that the 24th of February we mark as the beginning, the invasion of Ukraine. Yeah. But I'll mark the 21st here. The 21st of February, Putin declares the Donbas region as an independent nations. It's those eastern provinces of Ukraine. And those provinces, Putin says, do not belong to Ukraine. They are independent nations. And then the 24th, of course, but the 24th, we know Putin invades those provinces. Um, but basically, what Putin said here, the 21st, is that those provinces they don't even belong to Ukraine. So according to that logic, Putin does not invade Ukraine. So he goes into those provinces, or he goes into Ukraine the 24th. And then the next day, and on the 25th, the United Nations Security Council comes together. On the 25th, the United Nations Security Council comes together and votes over a resolution about this invasion. This resolution says that the invasion of Ukraine should immediately stop and is illegal and should stop. So the problem with the United Nations, or the problem, but the United Nations Security Council is a council of 15 members. It's 15 nations, and 5 of them are permanent members, and the other 10 are rotating every year or every second year. And those 5 permanent members, they have a veto power. So this regulation about veto power and the voting of the United Nations Security Council, the rules about it, those rules are noted in the charter of the United Nations Charter. It's basically the constitution of the United Nations. And this rules about the voting is and the veto power is in Article 27 of the United Nations Charter. In this article, it also says that when a specific nation is part of the problem, then this nation is not allowed to vote. You want me to have a pause? Uh, no, you sent me. Oh, sorry. So the last sentence was about this article, Article 27. It also says that when a nation is part of the problem or part of, in this case, part of the war, they are not allowed to vote. So there, in this case, there is a resolution about Russia invading Ukraine. According to the rules, Russia is not allowed to vote on this resolution because it's part of the problem. But Russia votes anyway, and they veto the resolution. So they break Article 27.3. It is the resolution would have been accepted by the council if if Russia did not veto it. So how long do you want me to continue? Because you said I need to sum up. Okay. Just a short break, like 2 minutes, and then continue, or longer. Oh, on your phone. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So we have a short break because we have some problems with the translation, and then we'll come back.
Hi, Justina. Is a 15-minute break long enough for you to set up again? Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. We'll have a 15-minute break. So we'll start again at 11:30.